Hello, and welcome to a discussion on evaluating what's on your plate with myself, Professor Toni Marie Gist at the University of Illinois. So let's begin by sharing screen so we can discuss it together as we go through some basic information on the topic. So I'm going to share my screen and then we can continue the conversation. So with evaluating what's on our plate, we have some basic learning objectives that we want to cover. For example, we want to discuss what's meant by an essential nutrient. We want to highlight the importance of these 6 nutrients. We want to demonstrate where the 6 nutrients are on a nutrition facts panel. We want to spot signs and symptoms of nutrient deficiencies, and we want to recognize reliable nutrition information and then determine if something is true with respect to the sciences. So let's begin with that first learning objective. With this first learning objective, for us to discuss nutrients, we have to define what they are. So nutrients are chemical compounds that need to be consumed. So we need to either eat it in a foodstuff or again, drink it, or it's made by the body and it's needed for growth and maintenance. So if something that is a nutrient is unavailable for the body's cells, we have a situation where growth and maintenance are then compromised. This is not good because we want to make sure that these small building blocks that we call our cells have what they need. We want to make sure they have oxygen. We want to make sure they have nutrients. We want to make sure waste products are being brought away from them. We want to make sure they can do what they're supposed to do. So the cells of our liver are happy little liver cells. The cells in our lungs are happy little lung cells. Everywhere we go, those cells are taken care of. And so to be sure that we're doing that, they do need to have nutrients, either consumed or again made. As we continue on and we want to discuss what is meant by an essential nutrient, the thing that's different from just a nutrient and this term essential nutrient is that term essential. And so like we mentioned before, nutrients are needed for the body, but with an essential nutrient, it cannot be synthesized in adequate amounts. So even though, for example, our body can synthesize a little bit of vitamin D with some sun exposure, oftentimes, especially here in Illinois, where the weather is not so ideal, we don't produce enough vitamin D to meet our body's metabolic needs. Therefore, it becomes an essential nutrient, which means that we must consume it. And if we don't consume it, and we know that it's needed for health and well-being, we actually start having problems with regard to deficiencies. And even though I can tell you all about deficiencies, I love this fun little video by Patrick Reed entitled Scurvy. Either look it up on your own or glance into the notes from this particular video, and you can link to it and watch it. It definitely gives you information about what might happen if we don't consume enough vitamin C. What are going to be some problems that might surface? So watch that video and then come back. So if you've watched the video and now you've come back, hopefully you know that again, vitamin C is needed for immunity. Vitamin C is needed for collagen synthesis. Vitamin C is needed for your body to function properly. So if you don't have the appropriate amount of vitamin C in your diet, like some of these sailors did, then ultimately what happens is collagen, which is this network of connective tissue under your skin and in your ligaments and your tendons, the production of that is compromised. And when the production of collagen is compromised, then we have issues with your body functioning the way it should. Also, vitamin C is needed for immunity. So if you don't have enough vitamin C, your immune system can't do what it's supposed to do, which means you start getting sick, you start getting tired, you start having issues. So the way I describe vitamins and minerals that are essential is that if we think about them like medicine, that's the best way to reflect on them. So if we need them in the diet to prevent a deficiency, if we have too little, we're going to have problems. We need to make sure we get enough. If we have enough, we're healthy, we're healthful. But if you think about medicine, let's say you need to have one blood pressure pill per day to make sure that your body is appropriately functioning and you're in a healthful, appropriate blood pressure range. More is not better. Same thing with our vitamins and our essential minerals. If we're supposed to have the appropriate amount, if we consume twice, 3 times, 4 times that amount, we can start running into problems with our health and well-being as well, just like you would if you overconsumed medicine. So as we continue on to learning objective 1D, we want to discover, what does the National Institute for Health, or NIH, say about essential amino acids? And if you're not familiar with the term amino acid, these are the basic building blocks of proteins. So we all know we should have protein in our diet. And if proteins themselves are made of amino acids, and some of those amino acids are essential, it means that they are indispensable. It means that we need to have them in our diet because we can't synthesize them by the body or even convert them from other amino acids. And you might say, well, aren't all amino acids essential? Actually, no. We have non-essential amino acids, which we can use to interconvert to various amino acids in our body. But essential amino acids need to be consumed. And if they're not present in the foodstuffs that we eat or drink, it's going to impact not only the protein quality of that particular food, it's going to impact our body's ability to make protein that's needed for our body to function properly. So when we start talking about things that are essential, and if it's not in our food stuff, the quality of our food stuff is going to be compromised, as well as if it's essential and we don't have it in our body's not going to function the way that it should. Let's move on to learning objective 2. And learning objective 2 asks about the nutrient classes. So what is a nutrient class? And scientists, we love to categorize items based on their properties. We like to categorize them based on what they do, based on their chemical property. So nutrient classes are categorized based on both their chemical property as well as their functional property in the body. And so when we start discussing these nutrient classes, the significant divisions can hold classes within them, and then those classes can contain subclasses, and then those subclasses can contain specific examples. And you might say, Toni, that's a lot. Tell me what that means. Well, let's talk about a significant division. We have a macronutrient division as well as a micronutrient division. With our macronutrient division, macro means big, which means that these are the nutrients that we need in larger quantities. So we need to have grams of carbohydrate, grams of protein, grams of lipids or fats. So we consider those macronutrients, and that's the division we use for those. We also have within this macronutrient division, like I said, we have our class, like our carbohydrates, and then we have our subclasses. So if you think about carbohydrates, and if you've gotten acclimated with the nutrition facts panel, you'll know that on the nutrition facts panel, we have total carbohydrates, and then sugars are a subclass right under there. So macronutrient division, carbohydrates are a class, sugars are a subclass, and going even further, lactose is a specific example of a sugar. And if you didn't know, lactose is in dairy products like milk. So therefore, lactose is going to be a specific example of something you might find in your food that can be categorized under the macronutrient division. As we go a little further, we have micronutrient divisions. So our micronutrient division contains our vitamin and our mineral classes. So when we look at our micronutrient division and we look at our vitamin class, we actually have a subclass called fat-soluble vitamins. And the fat-soluble vitamins, you guessed it, they're vitamins that are soluble in lipids or in fats. And within that subclass, we have vitamin D, which is going to be a specific example of a vitamin that would then go under the micronutrient division. And water, it deserves a class of its own. And so therefore it is in its own individual class. Water is literally the most vital nutrient of all. You can go probably, days, weeks, months without consuming carbohydrates or proteins or lipids or fats. However, if we don't have the appropriate water that we need, along with the electrolytes to help with that water balance, we can die within a week. without water. So kind of scary because water helps with so many things. It helps with thermoregulation or maintaining our body temperature at that beautiful 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Water helps carry nutrients to our cells, carry waste products away from our cells. It helps carry gases, so many things that water does. It allows for lubrication and cushioning in our joints. So make sure that you stay hydrated with your drinks as you think about the most important nutrient class. Let's move on to learning objective 2B, where we're learning why are each of those macronutrient classes needed? Like, why do we need fats or lipids? Why do we need carbohydrates? And why do we need proteins? Well, within the fat or lipid class, we have essential fatty acids, meaning we need to consume them in our diet, or we have a problem with our health and well-being. And these essential fatty acids help with nerve and brain development. They help with mental health functioning. They help with heart disease prevention. They help us produce lipid-based hormones. Every single one of our cells has a lipid bilayer cell membrane, which lipids obviously help make it up, and it even helps with vision. So definitely, we want to make sure we have those essential fatty acids in our diet. As we move on to the carbohydrates, we've got digestible carbohydrates like our starches and our sugars that are needed for energy. In fact, if you don't consume enough digestible carbohydrates, your body will actually, no joke, take protein from your diet or even protein from your muscles and make carbohydrates to maintain your blood glucose levels. Glucose is a specific example of a carbohydrate. So with that, make sure that you are consuming things like vegetables, fruits, whole grains that are rich in these healthful carbohydrates that are going to allow your body to do what it needs to do as efficiently and as effectively as possible. If you're consuming those fruits and vegetables and the whole grains, you're also consuming what we call indigestible carbohydrates or fibers. And these help with microbe health. So all those healthy hindgut microflora that are living in your intestine, they love to chomp, chomp, chomp on some of those fibers that your body doesn't digest. Also, these indigestible carbohydrates can actually lower blood cholesterol levels. Crazy. As well as your intestine pushes the fiber along, it allows for the muscles around those intestinal walls to become stronger and healthier and allow you to be more regular as you're passing a bowel movement. And our proteins, we can't forget about them. We have proteins which contain essential amino acids. And those essential amino acids are needed to build muscles, needed to build organs, needed to build protein-based or amino acid-based hormones. Every single enzyme that helps speeds up chemical reactions in your body, they're made from proteins, as well as in our cell walls. Every single one of our cells has little protein made items that are going to allow for things to go in the cells, out of the cells. We also have protein-based organelles, which are tiny little things inside of our cell that are going to allow the cell to do what cells do best. Now that we've covered the macronutrients, let's talk about the micronutrient classes. And we've got two different micronutrient classes. We have our vitamins and we have our minerals. Every single vitamin, all of them are essential, but they each have different functions. So a list of some examples of vitamins are vitamin C helps with immunity. Vitamin A is going to help with vision. Vitamin D helps with body structure, assimilation, like our bones. All the B vitamins help with energy metabolism, and we can go on, and you'll learn more as you continue to dive into this topic with me. On the flip side, minerals are necessary. For example, lead, mineral, we don't want it, So we have select minerals that are essential, meaning we need them in our diet. But those essential minerals do have differing functions. Iron helps with red blood cell formation, and it helps with carrying oxygen through our body. Calcium helps with bone and tooth structure. Water balance is carried out with water, but also we have these electrolytes like sodium, chloride, and potassium that are needed and essential minerals that we need to consume on a regular basis to help maintain that water balance. And then we have little iodine, which helps with metabolic reactions because it helps produce thyroid hormone. So lots of different minerals are needed. And again, we will discuss those as we continue on. When we look at different dietary patterns, Harvard has its own healthy eating plate, no joke. And I feel like their healthy eating plate is fantastic. So if you look at this plate, what do you notice? I notice that vegetables make up the majority of the options or groups on this plate. Then we have healthy protein like fish, poultry, beans, which are also going to make up a significant amount of the plate. The fruits are a lot smaller than you would see on other guide things such as my plate. And then we have our whole grains. Additionally, the Harvard plate, that healthy eating plate that they've put together, doesn't necessarily include a dairy product. And as we go on in the semester, we'll discuss why that is. Additionally, the Harvard healthy eating plate encourages the use of a moderate amount of healthy oils like cold press extra virgin olive oil. In fact, some of the healthiest countries in the globe, like Greece and Spain, instead of having salt and pepper on their tables, oftentimes they'll have a little thing of oil that you can drizzle over your food because it does help with your health and well-being. When we continue on, how do we interpret a nutrition facts panel? Well, I encourage you to go and grab a food item and be like, oh my gosh, well, I'll go over here and I'll grab some Quaker oats. And with our Quaker oats, we have our nutrition facts panel on here. You can grab a nutrition facts panel of a food stuff that's near you, or you can Google one and look it up online. And you'll notice we have 4 different major components, which I want to highlight. The serving information, which is key to moderation, the total calories per serving. This is an estimate that they have used to either calculate to get these calories, or they burn the food stuff and use the heat that's given off to determine the calories. They tell you about the nutrients that are in the food stuff itself, encouraging you to get enough of certain things or limiting other things. And then there's a quick guide to your daily values. So if you have a food stuff that has less than 5% the daily value for sodium, you know it is low in sodium. If you have a food stuff that has, again, 25% the daily value for fiber in the food stuff, it is going to be high in fiber. And you may wonder what information might be hidden on that label, but we can determine if we learn a little bit more. Well, under each one of these items, there's a little bit of hidden information. So when we look at the total fats, you'll notice that we have our saturated fats and our trans fats listed on all of the labels. However, our unsaturated fats are not listed on there. And you might go, well, wait a second. Isn't that a component of total fats? Don't total fats equal saturated plus trans plus unsaturated? And the answer is yes, but they don't put the unsaturated fats on there, but you can calculate it. So what you do is you take the total fats, you subtract the saturated and trans fats, and then what's left over is the grams of unsaturated fat that you have per serving in your food stuff. Same with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates do not have starch listed on the label as a subcomponent. However, total carbohydrates in your food stuff contain fiber, sugar, and starch. So if you're trying to find out how much starch might be in your Quaker oats, you would take the total carbohydrates reported on the label, you subtract out fiber and sugar, and then that gives you the amount of starch that's left. Proteins get a little bit more complicated because you actually can't tell the protein quality. You can't tell off of the label whether it has all the essential amino acids or not, or if it's lacking one or more essential amino acids. So if a label does have the percent daily value on it, I wouldn't necessarily trust it from that location. I would definitely learn more about proteins as we continue the conversation here. And with our water, surprisingly, you can calculate the amount of water that you have per serving in a foodstuff. So if you take the total weight of that foodstuff and then you subtract out total fat, which is a macronutrient, total carbohydrate, another macronutrient, and then we subtract out the protein, then that leaves you the amount of water that you have in that foodstuff. So even though the label doesn't have unsaturated fats, starch, protein quality, or water amount, you can calculate some of these things on your own. And based on the information from the Food and Drug Administration or the FDA, what nutrients should we make sure we get enough or more of? And what nutrients should we limit or get less of? Well, we want to make sure we get enough or more of the fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. And this is one of the reasons why all of these items are on your nutrition facts panel so that you can see what's going on. Are you getting enough of those? Additionally, the nutrition facts panel highlights saturated fat, sodium, and added sugar. I want to get less of these. We do not need them. None of them are going to be something that we're really at risk for being deficient of if we are consuming a typical American diet. So just things to think about. And we want to know, if we don't consume these essential nutrients, what is a deficiency sign? What is something that is going to happen to us? Well, a sign, you think about it like a stop sign, you can see it. So a sign is something you can see, such as someone who has a flush face. So if they've consumed way too much niacin and they even get to a toxicity symptom, you might have a situation where, flushing happens. So a flush face or a pale face, these are things you can see. So that's going to be a sign. Also, something we can measure, such as body temperature. That is something that is going to be a deficiency sign if it's associated or an illness sign. Then we have things we can quantify, like urine volume. That's something that is also going to be a sign. And we have things that we can also confirm with others. For example, if Jenny over here is vomiting in the corner, I, as well as other people around, can say, yes, vomiting is a sign for Jenny. You may have heard the term symptom, though, and symptom is slightly different. So a symptom is something that an individual reports. So if someone says their stomach hurts and they're having pain, that is going to be a symptom. If someone has blurred images when they're looking through their eyes, that's vision issues, that's a symptom. If someone has a stomach that's upset or they have nausea, that is going to be a symptom. And symptoms, I hate to say it, they can be faked. So if you're someone who's ever tried to tell your parent, grandparent, or someone else watching over you that, like, oh, my stomach hurts, and they're like, you're fine, they can't see that you are sick. This is a symptom, so it's something that they're relying on you to tell the truth about. I do want to discuss that I myself had a deficiency in college. So here's a picture of myself and my friend Christine from when we were teenagers. I was 17 here at the University of Illinois. And back then, fat-free food was all the rage. We had these Snackwell cookies for desserts. I had other foods that were extremely low in or deficient in fat. And so obviously that's not necessarily beneficial for you. So I want to bring up things that I ate versus things I didn't eat. And I do want to let you know that myself and Christine are shown in the lower right-hand corner more recently than the original picture. We stayed in contact. We are close friends. And now both of us are very well versed with regard to what things we should be eating for health and well-being. But back then, we were making some really bad choices. We were literally putting ourselves into a deficiency situation because with fat-free being all the rage, my diet consisted of a variety of fat-free options. I had skim milk and fat-free cereal. I had egg whites, but I didn't eat the yolks. I had salad with fat-free dressings, and I even had that Snackwell fat-free dessert. I avoided foods that had fat. I did not consume the traditional college pizza or dairy like 1% milk, 2% milk, or whole milk that had natural fats in it. I wasn't consuming cold water fatty fish like salmon. I wasn't having meats that had fats in them. And I wasn't taking any essential fatty acid supplements like fish oil or krill oil. So I started having some issues. Weeks went by, I was eating this diet. Months went by, I was eating this diet. And some health problems that occurred when I was having this nutrient deficiency were first, oh my gosh, my skin was horrible. It was awful. Literally, I had it was just not good. Not only did I have acne, my skin had kind of like scaliness associated with it. I'm going to be honest. my intestine weren't functioning the way that they should be, because essential fatty acids do help with bowel movement or pooping regularity. Even had infections that started to set in. It started with a respiratory infection, like upper respiratory in my sinuses and in my face. It turned into a lower respiratory where I was coughing up green things. I got a bladder infection, which then progressed onto a renal and kidney infection. So, because my body was so stressed with this nutrient deficient diet, I was having major issues with my health and well being. And you might wonder, well, how could this have been prevented? Very simply, actually, if I had more knowledge, I would have known that my essential fatty acids were missing from my diet. And if I consumed those essential nutrients, like those fatty acids, I wouldn't have had the deficiency. So I could have had salmon in the dorms occasionally. I could have chosen to consume some walnuts or some flaxseed. Or even if I don't want to have any of those foods in my diet, I could take a supplement with fish oil or krill oil, and I would have prevented this deficiency situation from surfacing. And every single module, every single chapter, every single time we close out, I'd like you to know that we want you to know what reputable sources you have available to you as you continue to investigate this complex topic of nutrition. So think about sources as well as what makes them reputable. So we've got eatright.org. What makes it reputable? You can use the QR code and you can go and check out that website a little bit more. We also have choosemyplate.gov, which is a reputable source in addition to the Food and Drug Administration or the FDA, nutrition.gov, USDA, the National Institute for Health or NIH, as well as Harvard Medical are all fantastic and reputable sources. So if you're looking for information on a topic, I would encourage you to use this QR code that brings you to a website, bookmark that website, and then you can use any one of those reputable sources to learn more. But I also want to have you think about the fact, oh my gosh, how many unreliable sources in nutrition are there out there? I would love for you to share the most ridiculous. So let's find some silly TikToks that are telling us to do something that we should not do, or a YouTube video. Let's highlight some of those, or a blog. Oh my goodness, so many terrible blogs out there telling you misinformation, or anyone who's really trying to sell you something. These are places you do not want to turn for your nutrition information. You want to turn to reputable individuals, reputable sources, so you can really become your own detective. So, as I hydrate a little more, I want to say thank you for joining me during this discussion. And I encourage you to reach out if you have any additional questions. I'm here for you.